10th of the 10th month, October 10th, and we are hurtling towards Election Day. And when ballots are out, just less than 2 weeks, actually, everybody should have a ballot in their mailbox, thanks to our beyond criticism vote by mail system. And
Yeah.
and with me is Mr.
The model for the rest of the country, this most safest and secure.
That's right. As long as you don't criticize it, you're fine. And with me is Mr. Betsy is not the solution.
She is not the solution.
She is not the solution. No. Unless you are a Democrat who will never vote for a Republican, then okay.
Right? Yeah, if you're a Democrat and you just can't bring yourself to vote for probably one of the most unlikable candidates I've ever seen, Tina Kotek, then yeah, Betsy is your solution. As a matter of fact, if you're a Democrat or if you know anybody that's a Democrat, I suggest you vote for Betsy because Tina's horrible. She's a horrible human being.
She is. Yeah, and she's out there proving it all the time. And coming this week, by the way, secretly to help Tina Kotek. It's a big secret, David.
Bumbles
is
Bumbles? President Bumbles?
President Bumbles, who
Armageddon.
I saw one of the funniest things I have recently seen today. I just saw it today. It's a video that somebody made into a song of Joe Biden saying stuff that it's very recent. And I'm just going to post it because if you enjoy things that put a smile on your face and help you laugh so you don't have to cry at what is happening to our country, this is an excellent one. And I have no idea who produced it. I'm pretty sure that they're being canceled right now on social media. So go watch it as soon as the show's over. But
yeah, you know why? You know why they're being canceled? Because nobody messes with a Biden.
That's right. Yeah, if you are doing anything to the Bidens, then the federal Biden the federal Biden investigation office will be at your home, ready to with at least a small army of people armed with submachine guns and body armor to come in and make sure that you are marched off, your frog marched off in cuffs.
Yeah,
because you disagreed.
Talk about marching towards Armageddon, you know.
Well, yeah. I mean, actually, that's where he's trying to take us, isn't he?
God, well, it's Armageddon for American civil liberties, no doubt about that. I mean, the kind of stuff that we're seeing out of the FBI is just, it would make Castro blush were he still alive, or maybe he is still alive and he lives with Elvis in Miami. I don't know.
Well, President Brandon does everything 10 times worse than anybody else thought of doing before. So, you've heard of wag the dog, that thing where you just try to distract everybody from the complete disaster that is your presidency, or the 10 complete disasters that is his presidency. How do you do that? Well, a great way to wag the dog more than anybody has ever wagged it is start talking about Armageddon and nuclear war. That's a great way to do it.
Yeah, can you imagine that stuff? We got a bumbling president that is saying that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, that's just 2 years is too long, or 4 years is too long, I should say. Well, I'm starting to think 2 years is too long to elect a new Congress. But man, it seems like 4 years is too long to have the opportunity to right a wrong in a presidential election. Maybe we need a Article 5 convention and change that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that's going to change during the next 2 years while they stonewall every congressional investigation by a Congress that apparently is not going to stay in their hands, or at least the House, and we're hopeful on the Senate. But back here in Oregon, the person that President Brandon is coming to save, which I think I said last week, him coming to save Tina Kotek, who is in trouble here in Oregon, is like tying two rocks to each other and then expecting them to float.
Yeah, well, I'm sure McLeod Skinner will be in there as well. I mean, I'm sure they're apoplectic about losing the possibility of losing CD5. So, that's three rocks. Uh,
That's right. That's
three rocks tied to a concrete block.
called the Democrat Party. And so, yeah, but back here in Oregon, it seems that Tina Kotek has done something that she is being called out for. And apparently a complaint has been filed by the Oregon Republican Party that she might have broken state law by promising something to a third-party candidate who then dropped out of the race. And we wouldn't know about this if it weren't for the fact that the third-party candidate actually came out after she dropped out of the race and said, and she did this in early September, she was the Pacific Green Party candidate. She said that she did this after Tina Kotek committed to support her campaign finance reforms, basically by promising to support passage of bills that would and sign into law bills that would implement this policy desire. However, it is supposed to be against Oregon law, which prohibits anyone from promising something of value to induce a candidate to stop running for office, which is exactly what she did. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, she's a Democrat. It doesn't, laws don't apply to them. Laws, mandates, all that stuff. We've seen that all in the last 2 years. They were comfortable and going out to eat and having parties and all that stuff while we were forced to stay home and hide from the virus. That started with somebody biting the head off a bat, I guess. That's what we're told.
Yeah, a pangolin, whatever that is.
It's kind of a la Benghazi, a YouTube video started that.
Yeah, that's right. It was all a YouTuber. And of course, we know that one of the reasons why the laws don't seem to apply to Democrats is because they have iced the judicial system with nothing but people they've appointed who don't seem to face real elections ever. And that's reason 152.3 thousand why you should not vote for Tina Kotek and why you need Christine Drazan as governor, so that we can actually change the direction of how our judiciary is peopled. And it's urgent. But take a look at this story, because it's being covered, but it's not getting coverage in every single publication. Why? Because it's Republicans that file the complaint. So it's not just the justice system and the laws. It's the media who are in cahoots on this. Thanks to the OregonCapitalChronicle.com, you can go and take a look at this and see what's happening. But, let your friends know that Tina Kotek doesn't see a reason to follow campaign finance laws, because those are for putting Republicans in jail. Those aren't for putting Democrats in jail. Come on.
Yeah. Well, here it's the 10th of October. I expect more October surprises.
Yeah, and maybe that's what Joe Biden is. He's the October surprise. Who knows what he's going to say when he's here? If they let him go off script, I don't know.
He's got to be a boat anchor for Democrat campaigns. I mean, Democrats nationwide are kind of distancing themselves from President Bumbles because I think he is a boat anchor. And, I think his policies have been, shown to make life harder for each and every American. And, I think Democrats running for office don't want to be associated with that.
Yeah, as bad as the policies are, right. As bad as the policies are that Democrats have been putting forward and the results they've produced, the only thing that makes it worse is being associated with the guy that everyone believes is a complete fool that's running the country, that's responsible for these policies at the national level. And so you see Democrats now in the 4th Congressional District, for instance, trying to sound and make up little stories about themselves to make themselves sound reasonable or moderate. Val Hoyle, the Democrat candidate in the 4th Congressional District, said in a debate with Alex Skarlatos, the Republican candidate, that she promises to, quote, work across the aisle in Congress, unquote, even though she was in the state legislature and actually has no record of doing that whatsoever. We know that the state legislature in Oregon has not been nothing but the middle finger to the people on the other side of the aisle. And
yeah.
or they just reach across the aisle and they just slug people on the other side of the aisle and then say, but you aren't working with us, so we're going to ignore you. How's that sound?
Yeah, the very definition of one party rule. It's not just one party majority or supermajority, it's one party rule. You know, Republicans have been cut out of the process at every opportunity. And, you know, for any Democrat in the state of Oregon to say that they're going to work across the aisle, you know, maybe Betsy can make that claim. Maybe she's the only Democrat that can make that claim, but very few of them can.
Yeah, and Val Hoyle is a far left Democrat. That's it.
Oh,
so
yeah.
if you're in the 4th congressional district, if you're in, you know, Lane County, Douglas, Coos County, Curry County, that area, and you feel like you haven't been well represented by the person who was there for 18 terms, you're going to really hate this person because she's like even further to the left. And she claims she's already reaching across the aisle. So if you don't feel like she's been reaching across and listening to you, do run the other way. Do everything you can to get Alex Karlatos elected.
I'm a whacked out Marxist, just like you.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and you know, this might actually be starting to happen now because there's an ad that's been launched by the Scarlettos campaign called Biden Voters for Alec. So they're literally going back to people who made the grievous error of voting for and believing the things they were told about the so-called moderate Joe Biden, the one who's coming to Oregon to poop on the campaigns of the Democrats that think he's going to help. And
coming to work over a hot mic.
That's right. So this is an ad that's being run by the Scarlettos campaign that shows a public school teacher and lifelong Democrat who's saying, I voted for Joe Biden in 2020. I am voting for Alex Scarlettos in 2022. It is happening. It's happening all over the place. And it is the greatest fear that the Democrats have that they can't sell this stinking pile of policy and results they've produced for the country, even to Democrats who have been Democrats for their entire lives. Mm-hmm. So take a look at that ad because Alec is that group that just launched its ad today.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm really, you know, I'm kind of, I still have this kind of this jaded philosophy about Oregon elections, but man, I don't know how many times I've said this, but this has got to be the most sincere time I've ever said it. If voters can't see through the
you froze. I think the folks at your internet service provider are trying to freeze you out there, Mr. Betsy's not the solution. I think I know what you're about to say.
I froze.
You're back.
Yeah, I don't know where I got, but my point is if voters can't see through what Democrats have in store for policy for the state of Oregon, I don't know. I would lose faith in humanity.
Yeah, I mean, the Democrats have absolutely done their darndest to make sure that you and I are going to be the lowest priority in their policy priorities, and that we're going to be unhappy with the outcome, not because we're Republicans, but because we actually like to be free and be able to earn a livelihood, not have people printing so much money that inflation's eating it all, and then tell you that it's your fault. Or that it's Vladimir Putin's fault, which is the dumbest thing ever. And then as an excuse for not only not solving it, but making it worse. Now, there's another race that, and this is the one you were talking about, that has Jamie McLeod Skinner in it. The Republican candidate is Lori Chavez DeRemer. And this is a little overview of what are considered the national implications of this race, that this is a very winnable race for Republicans, that Lori Chavez DeRemer does appear to be dead even or up in the polls, which, you know, is dangerous because Democrats tend to, you have to win by more than the margin of fraud, but in an opportunity, a red wave year, this is a serious opportunity. And if you read through this article, you'll read nothing but article after article or note after note about how wonderful Jamie McLeod Skinner, this moderate emergency preparedness coordinator who stands for everything you stand for, is running against this terrible person who was the mayor of Happy Valley that apparently only wants, her only policy program is to take away abortion rights in a state that's actually not possible, even by the Supreme Court decision.
Right, and actually, really not this particular candidate's stance either. By the way, yeah, I don't know. You know, McLeod Skinner, she just reminds me of like a Karl Marx stick figure.
Yeah.
You know, she has no substance to her. There's nothing. There's no personality. There's no history or future or being or presence. She's just kind of like a Karl Marx stick figure. I'm here to champion the progressive left.
Well, and it's so bad right now in her race that in that race that when Lori Chavez Dreamer said, "Would you call yourself a progressive?" In their debate, Jamie McLeod Skinner's head went. She couldn't figure out how, after being a full-on Bernie Sanders progressive for years,
right,
that she had to explain to people that she's actually not really a progressive. I don't like terms like that.
Yeah.
And even though, and she defeated a congressman who was considered sort of a moderate, but voted with Joe Biden 90% of the time. But that person was not liberal enough, she said, for the Democrats in her district. But now she's not a progressive at all. Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I am more liberal than the not quite so liberal person that I beat in the primary. But I don't know. Let me ask the polling. Is progressive bad?
That's right. Apparently people are not fans of it right now.
Hey, Steve, how should I answer this question? Is that bad progressive? I'm not sure.
Yeah, and without the help of the media, it would Jamie McLeod Skinner would lose by 20 points. I mean, that's seriously. I mean, not just because she's unappealing, but because she literally has to create an entire fiction about who she is just to get elected.
Yeah.
And but the media has decided to take a pot shot. It was in fact Willie Week. It was Willamette Week. In their they do these interviews, the candidates, for so they can always not recommend the Republican. And and they described Lori Chavez Dreamer as a fiscally conservative business owner, but they said she accepted federal bailouts while her husband reaped a $1 million plus annual income through their the businesses that they had. Except that that's what the headline says. It sounds like they're just going after her like a rich person took money from the government. Except that here's the answer Lori Chavez Dreamer gave, which they had to actually print. I'm surprised that they did this. But she said, look, the government mandated that we could not work. We needed to make sure we didn't lose employees. That was the whole damn idea of the PPP, was that when the government shut you down against your will and said, you're not allowed to be in business, that you could get loans, which could be forgiven as long as you kept your employees. They did it. What's the complaint? I don't get what the complaint is. This is what happens when you're Jamie McLeod Skinner and the Democrats, and you suck so bad. Every policy sucks so bad. Everything you've been doing to the country that you want to do more of is so bad that you have to say this stuff and even distort it in order to make people forget how much you suck.
Which were policies that your party brought forth. And the lockdowns and all this free money giveaway, the PPPs, the ERC, all of the checks sent to people for staying home, so they wouldn't, hopefully not, they hopefully wouldn't stop voting Democrat or whatever they think. I don't know. It's all a big buy-off. But they're desperate. They'll say anything. They'll do anything. Doesn't even matter if it's true.
Yeah, and they can get the media to repeat it exactly the way they want them to repeat it.
Sure.
Even though this is what that program was intended to do.
They hand them the story.
Yeah, Here's
They
the
handle
story.
the
We've written it
talkers.
for you. Here's
We've
a
written
headline. Will you use this?
Yep, that's what they do.
And so, you know, there's one other race which is an even more extreme example of this, and this is in the 6th congressional district, where a complete lie, actually, with about with several $100,000 in ad buy behind it by Democrat Andrea Salinas in the 6th congressional district. The headline that the media is going with is that they are saying Oregon congressional candidate Mike Erickson sues opponent Andrea Salinas over negative ad. Well, you can't sue people over negative ads. What you can sue them over is complete falsehoods, verifiably provable falsehoods, where she makes this allegation that he was somehow charged or arrested for drug possession. And by the way, the drug they're talking about is hydrocodone, which his wife has a prescription for, and it just happened to be in a car at the time that he was pulled over for a stop by the police. And she's making the allegation that he was charged with felony drug possession. Unfortunately, the Hood River District Attorney, Kerry Rasmussen, said that the felony charges were not only never made, they were never even considered. They were never considered.
Yeah.
So this is a complete falsehood. And yet, Andrea Salinas, this is what she's running on. This is, and if you watch network television, which I don't, if you just watch the regular, this is like constant ads. That's all they're running. It's a lie. So she's going to get sued by Mike Erickson.
Good. Glad to hear it. Hope she wins. And I hope he wins.
Yeah. And I think that there's a chance that she may be much less wealthy after this is done. Because if it turns out that the result of the case, in order to protect Andrea Salinas somehow, is that you can't sue somebody for running complete provable falsehoods, which I thought the TV stations and the social media didn't want misinformation on there. But apparently they don't know what
they
this
don't want competition. That's what they don't want.
They don't want competition, exactly. They want people they disagree with to be censored. That's pretty much it. But if the court case says that this is okay to do this and put hundreds of thousands of dollars in ad buy behind it, guess what? There's not going to be an ad with a single truth in it in the next election cycle.
No, it could get pretty absurd, couldn't it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, you'll literally have people, photoshopping, pasting people on top of like Lee Harvey Oswald's body with a machine gun, claiming that, this candidate killed Kennedy. I mean, they'll just do nutty stuff.
Yeah.
This is only the beginning of it. But folks, that's what's going on in the congressional races. You have to donate to the Republican candidates in these races because the Democrats are coming in big time with huge amounts of money in order to bail out their candidates who suck and whose policies suck by running ads constantly about abortion in a state where the laws already ensure that people have all the abortion rights they're saying you need to vote for to keep. So, but they're going to run many, many ads telling you this. So fight like hell in these races and support these candidates and get in contact with the campaigns if you want to do something to help them beyond just giving them money. Take a sign, ask to volunteer to support them. They need the help. It could come down to like a handful of votes. We know that. That's how this could end up.
It could, yeah. It's important everybody votes. It's important that our side gets the turnout too. Traditionally, turnout's not that overwhelming in a midterm election, but we certainly need to make that happen because, Democrats seem to think that every Oregonian wakes up in the morning wondering whether or not they'll have the ability to kill an unborn child today. And we're not like that. And we don't need our leaders to try to tell us that that's the way we should be thinking, because that's what they're trying to say.
Yeah, that everyone out there is the so-called single-issue voter, that you don't care about anything else, such as the never-before-seen crimes that have been invented here in Oregon. That when I was reading through this, I'm like, I didn't know what the title of this meant, but then I started reading, and I'm like, yes, these are all stories we covered on this show over the recent months. For instance, the crime of perennial pooper. The Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, they're on the hunt for a suspect who has dropped over 500 human waste drops at various points in the Portland metro area, known as the perennial pooper.
Serial pooper, huh?
The mass tree killer. Police are on the hunt for a suspect labeled the Gresham Lumberjack, who is suspected to have cut down as many as 700 trees around Gresham Portland portion of the Springwater corridor. A forest fiend cuts trees near hiking paths and does not take the wood. It is pure nature sabotage. So they're calling out the real police protection. Yeah, they're short. They don't have enough to respond, for 90 minutes to somebody who to a school that might be facing a school shooter, but they got somebody they can send after the mass tree killer. Mass naked parading. Although any large city in America may witness a naked vagrant every now and then, Portland is experiencing a surge in such incidences. Below are just 4 examples in this article from Portland in a single 30-day period. And it's just naked people running around downtown, attacking other people that want to just live their lives. And then, of course, there's the bed napping trespassing. There was a woman, Portland woman was found sleeping in a child's bedroom, and she was homeless.
I saw that video.
Yep. And the owner kicked her out of the house, but only after being threatened by the person that she kicked out. And the same homeless person also used another person's home front porch along the street as a toilet. So I guess maybe she's actually an aspiring perennial pooper. She's just not there yet. And then there's the tire slashing trend. We've seen 5 waves of tire slashings, including just the other weekend. 50 cars had their tires slashed in the Laurelwood neighborhood in Portland because apparently there's a disagreement about whether or not people can go and poop everywhere and set up their tents in people's front yard and throw hypodermic needles everywhere and then break into their cars. And there's somebody that's unhappy that the local residents are dissatisfied with that situation existing. So he went and slashed all their tires. Very nice.
Wow.
And then there's mass catalytic converter theft. In Lake Oswego, a single home was found to have 3,000 stolen catalytic converters. Part of a larger crime ring that had stolen 40,000 of them in this area.
Holy cow, really? 40,000.
40,000. But you know what, David? People don't care about all that. They only care about abortion rights that are in no way under threat in Portland, in Oregon.
Constitutional abortion rights. Yeah. The Constitution says that you can kill your baby.
That's right. You can do it. That's right. I remember reading it, right? It was I forget which amendment it was, but it was there, right? Or somebody found it in the emanations and penumbras thereof. But that's everybody doesn't really care about all this crime. And, this is what's happening to our justice system. And this is very disappointing news. But it turns out that some people are there. In Portland, there was a guy who was charged with abusing a woman, just like physically abusing a woman. But it turns out, since that was just a misdemeanor, he was released later that same day from jail, because in Multnomah County, they don't detain people who do things like beating up a woman is apparently not a serious crime in Multnomah County. And therefore, later that same day, he went out and stabbed a gentleman to death. And that's it. Now he's been charged with murder. So apparently he's dangerous at this point. He stabbed a man named Mark Owens in Old Town.
They're going to keep him in jail now, or?
That's what they're saying. Now, I mean, Kate Brown hasn't had a chance to pardon him yet. But look, we better not hold our breath on this one because who knows where this will end up. But this is what's happening, is that people do things like beat women up, get released, go out, stab somebody.
Kill somebody.
Literally murdered a person.
Yeah.
And it's all because of a broken justice system that Democrats think is awesome.
Yeah.
They made it this way. They did this.
Yeah. Multnomah County DA Schmidt, he's got blood on his hands.
And then if you're, say, a famous serial rapist in Oregon, such as Richard Troy Gilmore, known as the Jogger Rapist, he attacked 9 girls and women in the late 70s and early 80s in Portland and surrounding suburbs. He's set to be released from prison here in mid-December because he has been classified as a, quote, low-level sex offender, unquote, which must be greatly reassuring to the victims who are now being told that the person who attempted or did rape them is just a low-level sex offender. So they're going to let him out. He's 63 years old.
Yeah, they're creating chaos in society. Creating a problem so they can swoop in and fix it. And of course, swooping in and fixing part is necessarily cost you freedom and liberty. That seems to be the plan.
Well, so the victims are really angered that Gilmore isn't considered what's known as a level 3 high-risk sex offender, which would require notification, by the way, to the community of wherever he lives or moves. So they're gonna let him out. He can go wherever he wants, and no one near him will know, even though he's a serial sex offender.
How long was he in jail?
So it says that he was in jail here. 1987, a jury found him guilty of raping 13-year-old Tiffany Edens, his last known victim, on December 6th, 1986. So 1987. And of course, raping a 13-year-old girl, I guess that's not a big deal anymore in Oregon. So I can tell you that if it happened to somebody I know, it'd be a real big deal for the person who did it.
Yeah.
That is something that we mustn't tolerate, and we've actually got to make sure we have elected officials that won't tolerate it either. Now, we've been covering the clemency stuff. Kate's corrupt clemencies that she's been doing. She's let out over 1,000 people from jail, and dozens in the category of felony murder and rape. Like the guy who she released, who took a victim several counties away and then shot her execution style in the back of his head. But he's a much better person now, and so she's letting him out. That's the plan. The case that went to challenge the way she was doing this, because Kate Brown says she's doing it to change our legal system. It's not because of an individual case. It's that she's offering some sort of general amnesty to anybody who she feels is actually the victim instead of the people that were victimized by these criminals. And Kevin Mannix was the attorney who argued this case in front of the Oregon Court of Appeals. The decision by the Oregon Court of Appeals was to ignore the law and the Constitution and essentially say that Kate Brown can do whatever she wants. This was appealed to the Oregon Supreme Court, which, by the way, 5 out of the 7 justices in the Oregon Supreme Court are appointed by Kate Brown, the person perpetrating the corrupt clemencies. There will soon be a 6th one appointed that we talked about last week because Thomas Balmer is retiring. So 6 out of 7 will be Kate Brown, state Supreme Court justices. But Kevin Mannix put out a statement saying that after the Oregon Supreme Court denied review of the Oregon Court of Appeals decision, which was done on behalf of crime victims, many of whom received no notification or consultation from the governor whatsoever, which it says plainly in the law that she's supposed to do this. He said it's a sad day for crime victims and prosecutors who went to the trouble of prosecuting and putting these people in jail. The Oregon Supreme Court has let stand a decision by the Court of Appeals that the governor is not bound to follow the clemency process set by law, which requires input from district attorneys and an opportunity for victims to be heard before a clemency decision is made. Instead, the governor can follow whatever process she wants and can ignore input from victims and district attorneys if she wishes. The court also allows the governor to give the parole board authority to shorten sentences where the law does not give any such authority. Because all this involves an interpretation of Oregon law, no further appeal can be taken. So you can't appeal this to the U.S. Supreme Court or to the federal court system. And Kevin Mannix has said, I will go to the legislature because he is running for state representative in District 21 against a guy we talked about last week who is actually was a convicted felon who's running against him. I know you can't just make this crap up. It's like, but this is what the Democratic Party in Oregon is. He said, I will go to the legislature and seek a specific law that makes it clear that the governor cannot set up her own clemency procedures and ignore the statutes. I will also seek a referral to the voters of a constitutional amendment which specifies that victims and district attorneys must be allowed to be heard in the clemency process. I will go one step further and seek a constitutional amendment which provides that no governor can use the clemency power to shorten felony prison sentences except when such clemency is approved by a majority of the Oregon State Senate. One way we can restrict abuse of the process we have witnessed. So, and I think there's one other thing we can do. We can elect a Republican governor who has confidence to not do this crap in the first place, and that will be Christine Drazan. Yeah,
that is the first line of defense right there. Thank God that Brown is termed out. I mean, we couldn't survive another few years of her. But electing Tina would be worse. So yeah.
Well, it's probably going to get worse before Kate Brown's the door hits her in the butt as she leaves. Because just think, even right now she's a little worried about upsetting the electorate with outrageous stuff like she's already been doing.
Yeah. Once the election is over, and particularly if Drazan wins, which polling seems to indicate she may very well do that. She'll have no reason not to just pull out all the stops and probably empty all the prisons.
Yeah, she's probably going to empty the prisons, and she's going to reshape our judicial system, which, by the way, is not what clemency is for. You're not supposed to reshape the judicial system. That's why we have judges and courts and finding of fact and laws under which people are sentenced, not governors who just say, I don't like this legal system, and so I'm going to do a favor for all of the convicted felons and just say, I don't like the law. You're out of here. Go and do what you want. Yeah. But that is what they really are for. Don't believe them telling you otherwise in this election.
Yeah. Well, government in the United States of America was designed to restrain government. I mean, that's why we have, restrained government. That's what our laws are for. That's what the Constitution is for, is to restrain, the size, the scope, and the reach of government. It's not to constrain the citizen.
No, that's exactly right. And these last two stories that we've got kind of make the point of what you're saying. One is that I'm going to take them in reverse order here. So the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality, which is a group that likes to go and do exactly that, run roughshod over the citizens of the state and the businesses in it. Yeah, they've decided to deny a key permit for a proposed renewable fuel facility it's a clean diesel facility that would take like cooking oil and things like that and turn it into something that could be used in vehicles in replacing diesel. Mm-hmm. And you think, that's something Democrats had all before, but you know what they can't seem to do? They can't seem to approve actually building the damn thing. So that's just like when they say, we're for billions of dollars in infrastructure spending because we have to improve our highways. And then you know what they don't do? They don't improve our highways.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the DEQ, there was a bill a few years ago that was introduced by someone who shares my last name that would have taken 50% of the proceeds of clean water violation fines and used it to clean up rivers. And the Democrats said, hey, that's a good idea, they said, right? And they scheduled a hearing. And then they found out that the person who wrote the bill was a Republican. Yeah, they did. They did. The media, I mean, that's the way they are, It's a great it's a great idea until we think it's not politically expedient,
Well, and they'll tell you that they're for it until they're not, because they want to get elected. And then they get elected and they're like, nah, we can't build that highway. There's a bunch of people upset about it that always support me. So I'm not going to let that highway be built. But this is the state we live in. And then the last story, apparently Oregon lawmakers are being warned that chip makers are getting lured away from the state of Oregon. And, this is one of the big industries here in Oregon. The largest Intel production and research facility in the world is actually in Hillsboro, and very well-paying jobs. But and then there's a whole bunch of other businesses that function in what they call the Silicon Forest, that are chip makers in various specialty categories and suppliers to all these chip makers, and they're getting lured away. And the Democrats apparently didn't get the. It started a year ago when Intel said, "The hell with you guys, I'm going to Ohio."
Yeah. I mean, and that's huge. That's huge because, as you said, Intel's been building out in that area for 30 years. Every time they want to expand, they build out there. And, half of Beaverton and parts of Aloha and Hillsboro are covered with Intel facilities, billions and billions of dollars worth of Intel facilities. So for them to make a decision to expand into another state, that's a big, as Joe Biden would say, that's a big, deal.
Yeah, and I want to know who is in charge of making sure that they talk to these companies and find ways to keep them here and maybe get them to expand here, which is what they already screwed up with Intel in the first place. And the answer is, I think it's probably the least popular governor in the United States and her team, who are the ones who caused the last set of opportunities to leave the state with Intel. It's catastrophic. I think all of these folks are probably watching what happens on election day and praying that Christine Drazan gets elected so they have somebody to work with in order to produce jobs and grow their businesses here in this state.
Yeah. Well, how do you tell corporations and other businesses that you don't want them in your state without telling them you don't want them in your state? Well, you put a sales tax on their gross receipts, and that's what the CAT is.
That's exactly right. I mean, that hits it right on the head, because for the most part, nearly every one of these entities has to pay tax, has to function under the morass of human resource laws that Tina Kotek doesn't think any of them, we can't get rid of any of them, but she'll work with businesses to make business easier for them to do. And yet it's mandate after mandate after mandate, costly. Just literally, it's like if you were Tina Kotek, you could already take credit for working 2 full-time jobs and maybe 3. So when you're a Speaker of the House, and then now you're a full-time candidate for governor, plus you're working full-time to drive businesses out of the state with everything you say and do. Yeah. I don't know. Where does she find the time in a day to do anything else?
No, I don't think she does anything else. That's all she does. I don't think she has a life. If she has a dog, I bet her dog doesn't even like her. Yeah. And I feel bad. I mean, I feel bad for a dog because,
I totally agree with you on that. I think that any dog must be looking for a new owner. Might be one.
God, here she comes. She's coming home.
She's gonna pet me. Ooh.
Yeah. Clyde Skinner's dog feels the same way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think that there's probably a great deal of truth to that too. And look, Andrea Salinas, she would just lie to the dog. So I mean, probably the dog is fine with her. That's my guess. Well, we have really laid it out there for everyone today. Mr. Betsy is not the solution, and I hope everyone was infotained this evening and shares the show with everyone they can. Thanks for being on the show with me here today, David.
Yeah, thank you. It was fun.
So everyone, share it with everyone you can. We're going to have a lot of interesting shows coming up here before we hit Election Day, and we're going to be giving you a heads up and maybe even doing some interviews on what's going on with these campaigns and talking to candidates and people working in these campaigns so you can stay fully informed and know what you can do to make sure that we don't have to continue to report all this same crap for the next 2 to 4 years here in Oregon, because we'll change things on election day. But again, thanks for joining us. And David, I guess it's you and I again tomorrow on the next episode of The Captive Audience. So we will be back. There will be a lot more news. You know there will be. In fact, we didn't even really get around to half of it today. And the other half of it might even be funnier than the stuff we talked about today. So
yeah, funny in a tragic sort of way, I'm sure.
Exactly, like a Greek tragedy comedy. Exactly. Well, thanks everyone. We'll see you tomorrow on The Captive Audience. Have a great night, and keep up the fight. We'll see you then.
Good night.